Stick around, it's gonna get a lot harder.
Me neither.
Okay. Okay, action items. A, Emeryville Police Department to report on use of force. Dante.
Yes, sir. So I wasn't here at the last meeting. I have statistics, I have our policy, I'm actually an expert in the field. I can answer anything you'd like to address.
Scott, I think the intent of this item is to clarify what the EPD's policy on use of force is. You know, it's not an extended overall of all the statistics and things like that, but it's important for the public to understand what is the general operating policy on use of force.
Right.
And also, if it's a written policy, is it available to be seen?
Yeah, yes, it is, and it is a written policy. We have it with all our other policies, and the policy is basically drawn up on the theory of reasonableness, and it's based on the court decision 30 years ago from Graham versus Connor, and it's all based on reasonableness, and it's something that we could go through on anytime you like.
Okay, is it something that that has an introductory paragraph or something you could read, or is it really a legal decision from the Supreme Court included in its full length? What can you say?
Right, it does have an introductory, it has a purpose and the scope, and Chief, if you want to read it, I can read it.
I can read it for you, and we can also share it with you. There's, all of our policies are open to anybody who wants to get a copy. And I'll read the purpose and scope of it for you, and then I'm not going to read the whole thing,
Okay,
but it'll
that's
give
fine.
you the introduction that you're looking for. It says, it's policy 300 of our policy manual, and it says, the policy recognizes that the use of force by law enforcement requires constant evaluation, so it's an ongoing process. Even at its lowest level, the use of force is a serious responsibility. The purpose of this policy is to provide officers of this department with guidelines on the reasonable use of force. While there is no way to specify the exact amount or type of reasonable force to be applied in any situation, each officer is expected to use these guidelines to make such decisions in a professional, impartial, and reasonable manner. And that's your introductory paragraph.
And so, would you say that that's not Emeryville specific? This is what any police department would have as an introductory paragraph, or is it Emeryville specific?
It is, I would say, that is indicative of the practice in our profession to have an introductory paragraph to every policy, just to set the stage for why the policy is necessary. If every agency has this particular paragraph, I can't tell you that. We do use Lexipol to help us develop policy. Lexipol is a legal firm, and the reason we use them is because they keep us up to date on case law and new legislation, and they send us automatic updates so that we're never out of compliance when it comes to new legislation or case law.
Okay.
And is the city attorney, does he get copied on all this incoming information from Lexipol?
He is not part of the process of updating the policy, but he is aware of new case law and new legislation.
And when is the last time that this policy was updated?
That's a good question. And
Well,
so
Scott, let me suggest something. I think this has more complexity to it than we originally felt when we put it on the agenda. What I'd like to see is that we get copies of this and that we put it back on the agenda next month, and we would have a reasonable
I think that's a good
amount
idea.
of time
You could
to
review it.
ask our questions and give them to you ahead of time so that we can have a more reasonable discussion. Would you be comfortable with that?
I would, just with a further question that I guess every police department has their policy.
Yes.
So it sounds like every police department can be somewhat at variance to any other police department in their policies, because each police department needs to decide, each city needs to decide its policies for use of force.
Yes. But,
Cor- Correct, but it's all based on the Supreme Court decision.
Yes.
And so you're absolutely right. So the purpose and the scope or paragraphs might be different for different departments, from department to department. But the meat of everything in there has to be based on the constitutional law and the
Right.
case law. So
Makes sense.
however they word that, everybody still has to stay in those parameters, which is very strict, and we have to have specific reasons how we use force and why we use force, and the documentation, and then the statistics. I have the statistics for you. If you, I made copies for our stats, and we were below the national average. We were well below the national average in complaints for our use of force, and we've had 31 either assaults on police officers or resisting arrest up until today. And we've used force 17 times. And of those 17 times,
In what
two,
time period?
from the beginning of the year until the 25th, September 25th. And that's well below the national average. And they're always thoroughly documented. Lots of sets of eyes look at them, where we CC or we make a UIR, unusual incident report, after we use of force, and we give that to the city attorney. The chief looks at it, I look at it, the sergeant looks at it, I look at it, the chief looks at it, the city attorney looks at it, and the city manager looks at it. So it's all very well documented. We take it very seriously, from, just like it said, from anywhere from the verbal to the ultimate use of force.
Is what you just said, how this, when the use of force is specified and a report is done, is that policy too? Is it said, the captain looks at it, the chief looks at it, the manager, city attorney, is that all? Or that's just best practice and that's how it's done here?
Well, at this moment in time, we're reviewing how we do it, because there's always opportunity for improvement. So when I come in a new set of eyes looking at how we do things, I'm bringing some new ways of reporting our use of force to the table, and we have a new reporting form that's a little bit more comprehensive than what's been used in the past. And then also our policy manual, we are starting resetting the clock on our policy manual, starting fresh, creating a policy committee, and then we're going to go through the entire manual and make sure that every policy in there reflects our organizational structure, our community expectations on service, and local ordinance, and that we're current on all of our training associated with the policies in the manual. It's a huge project. Chief Hall is going to come back and he is going to lead that project, because it is so complex and labor intensive. But I feel that it's the right thing to do at this point in our operations, is to take that manual and make sure that it is complete and up to date and reflects what we do, how we do it, and why we do it here in Emeryville. So that's where we're at. On use of force, I think the numbers are quite important to look at. They're actual numbers of 31 cases just this year where we had resistance, where our officers met resistance on the street. Only 17 of those cases resulted in some use of force. In none of those, and so that's a small percentage. A very small percentage, much lower than the national average. And if we look at, you have another stat somewhere.
So
the
the other
point is,
the other stat is calls for service. On the second page is calls for service versus the resistance and aggression. So this is how many times we have come in contact with citizen people, suspects in Emeryville, And it's over 16,000 up to date. So
Just
that's
this year.
Just this year. And we have a very, if you do this, the 17 times the use of force has been used, it's well below the net, it's below 1%. It's less than 0.5%.
Well, and it's also skewed by the fact, that's more than the population. Your calls for service are more than the population of Emeryville, but the statistics, the way they're drawn up, don't take into fact that double the amount of population comes into the city
Yes, ma'am.
every day. And I think we'll get into this more at the next meeting, but this city has done a disservice by the way they collect information,
Yes.
because the statistics are so skewed. But the other question I have, do you have hard copies of the manual?
I do have a hard copy, yes.
A hard copy?
Yes.
Is there an extra hard copy?
I have a copy, it's all
Is this
online.
a public document?
It can, if the public wants to view that policy manual, they can at any time.
Well, that's another thing I'd like to explore at the next
Somebody
meeting.
sitting here.
That this becomes a public document, whether or not it should be a public document.
It can be, there's no problem with sharing our policy on anything.
So I would move to continue this to the next
Okay,
meeting.
I
And then,
think-
in the meantime, you'll send us the copy.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
And one last thing, of those 17 uses of forces, we have not received one complaint.
You've received one.
Well, actually, we haven't received a complaint.
Oh,
on
you
that.
haven't gotten it yet, okay.
Right.
All right. I stand corrected. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any comment on this issue? Okay, item B. Police to report on the type of weapons used by EPD officers.
And then I have a list of them, and one of these documents.
The key
There
question
we go.
here
There it
is whether or not the EPD is a military organization with military weapons.
Right, so we're paramilitary, but we're not.
Define that, Chief.
So we have a structure, and we have sets of rules to go by, but we don't have any military grade weapons. We have, so if you want me to go, I can go through what we wear on our duty belt, and then what they have in the car. So-
I think the key question here was whether there is any use of military grade weapons by the EPD. And this is something that, this has come up in the public, and this is something that we should absolutely let the public know. We have no military grade weapons in the EPD.
Yes, ma'am.
So that
We
was the
have none.
purpose of this item.
Yeah, there are none.
We-
And the weapons that EPD uses today are industry standard. When
And the bad guys have them.
they have more than
Oh,
we
they
have.
have a lot more.
Right.
They have much more than we have. When I think about equipment for our officers, regardless of what it is, I think about what do I know the threat is likely to be? What is out there? What is our community facing? What are the threats? Are we trained to address those threats, and do we have the proper equipment to carry out that training? So regardless of what it is, whether the threat is noise complaints or fighting or domestic violence, burglaries, shootings, whatever it is, we have to plan, train, and equip to meet all of those threats. And at this point in time, I believe that what we have is sufficient to do that. We're not at war with our community. We don't have military grade weapons. We don't need them. What we have is sufficient based on what we know our threats are at this time. Training and equipment helps us meet that need to keep this community safe.
And it's a process that is continually reevaluated as weaponry changes out in the community, because we are right next to communities that have very, very serious problems.
Yeah, we are, and we always want to make sure that we can protect this community from those influences that come in and create safety issues. That's our job. And so we're constantly analyzing how we do what we do, how we deliver that service, and how we keep this community safe. It's an ongoing process.
You know, as we talk about this in the overall general context, do we have the figures for, you know, in our arrest records, what percentage of these people are Emeryville residents and what percentage are coming in from the outside? I would suspect it's in the nature of 90-10, but it would be very helpful to get a more informed information from
You can get that.
Yeah, I think 90-10 is probably even conservative. I
I'm
think
a
it's probably-
conservative person, as we all know.
And one area you want to look at too, when officers use force, it is always based on the suspect's action. So the suspect always dictates what the officer does all the time. Whether the suspect has what they're currently doing, or what they did in the past, or they're the officer perceives they're about to do, which means, did the suspect commit a robbery, an armed robbery, in 5 minutes ago, or is he committing a armed robbery right now, does he have a weapon on him? Is there 6 of them compared to one of the officers? Are they under the influence of drugs and stuff like that? That all dictates what the officer's reaction will be. And is that officer's action reasonable? That's what he's ultimately graded on. So.
Yeah, then the issue about reasonable requires thinking is part of the problem in a time frame that could be
Second.
difficult for an officer to make judgment.
Absolutely.
So is there a way to train officers in an environment where they have to think about the reasonableness while under fire,
Yeah.
metaphorically?
So we do training, and it's called force options training. And so it's scenario based, and the officers have to decide, what am I going to use to resolve this situation? And it could be just 2 people having an argument, and then suddenly one of them presents a gun, or 2 people having an argument and one of them presents a wallet.
Mhm.
Same action, different item, but it requires that quick thinking. So the officers do go through that. I hope to have that option of training available for our city leaders to come and experience, because it will really give you an opportunity to get inside the mind of an officer and how we are challenged to make those split-second decisions. And it's that quick.
Yeah.
As quickly as you turn a channel on the TV, that's how much time an officer has to make that decision. And if you look at our statistics, 31 cases just this year of resistance and aggression, only 17 where use of force was used. 1 had tragic consequences, but that's an amazing statistic, and it reflects very positively on the training of these officers at Emeryville PD and the quality of officers. I mean, it really does. I think it's a very good piece of information to take away today, that we are doing a good job, and these officers are challenged, but the outcome is something that we can feel
Do our
good
patrolling
about.
officers wear protective clothing that could resist most bullets?
Yes, we provide a protective vest, and we're actually examining the quality of that vest right now. Some of the vests are what I consider substandard, that they've been issued, so we're going to improve the quality of that for all of our officers. We're going to put a level 5 threat vest in the trunk of each car, so that gives them further protection when they arrive on the scene where there may be a military grade weapon. They all have helmets that they carry in their cars to protect them in those situations where they need that added protection. It is something that I'm taking under review because I feel that we need a little bit more than what they've been given.
Okay, I'm satisfied with what we have right now, and I would like to be able to review more extensively our policies and then perhaps come back and have a few questions next month.
Absolutely.
Great.
And our policy, you know, it's important for me that we have community input on these policies. It's important that the community understands that we have a policy, what's in the policy, what the challenges are, and then that the policy reflects community expectations. And the only way to get that information is for the community to look at the policy. So we're an open book. Any policy you can have, and we'll certainly make this one available and keep you included in the process of updating that policy manual.
So, you know, there's a number of things going on right now. Is it accurate to say if someone calls either Scott or I or one of the other council members with a question about the policy, that we can refer them to EPD and that they will get an answer? Or
Absolutely.
is there some place they can go online to get an answer?
The policy is not online, but we can, so that's a whole nother area of updating is
It's
our
something that I
website.
think we want to address because these questions are not going to go away. They're probably going to increase. And the more we can get this information online, and I understand you have to be very careful what you put online, but the more we can work toward openness with
Yeah.
police policy, I think the better we're all going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
so
we
we-
understand it's a
Yeah.
process. You don't
Yeah.
click your fingers and have it happen
No,
overnight.
but we are gonna update, that's a whole nother project, is updating our website to make it more informative to the public. Right now, it has very sort of outdated information or static information. So we're gonna update the police side of the website so that there is opportunity for the public to get information or even get help. Go to the right resource when they need help, and they don't necessarily want an officer to respond, but they need some information on how.
That's would be
So-
very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any comments about that? Okay, next item, C. Update activity at Watergate regarding noise complaints and crime.
That's nosy.
I am sorry.
I don't.
Isn't
Startle
there some
me.
kind of fine for that? Like $10,
Coffee
where you
next
have to
time.
turn in your phone or something
Coffee
like
next
that?
time.
Are you awake now?
I'm talking to the police chief on that one.
Okay.
You edit that?
So in regards to the Watergate, it's this Trader Vic's Watergate noise complaints is what it's stemming from. So last meeting, Joe and everybody was here sharing their concerns about the noise that Watergate's been, Trader Vic's has been providing them for several years. So we researched it. There was no cabaret permit on file by Trader Vic's, so a letter was sent to them. They immediately responded, and I've been working with their management. I gave them all the information they needed to file for a cabaret permit, which they have. The issue that I have is our cabaret permit system was kind of broken. We have an old 1988 was when the last revised cabaret permit was put on file. And if you read the municipal code and how they're supposed to do it, it's kind of, they're supposed to bring us a copy, go to City Hall, pay a fee, then they're supposed to bring us 2 copies back to the police department and showing that they had paid fees. Well, no one knew how to do really anything over at City Hall, so they were always sending them over here, and it was like a runaround. And so I actually met with Sarah Billings from the city, who's part of that process, the permit process of planning. And yesterday, as a matter of fact, is when we were first able to sit down. So we're putting together a better application, and hopefully the process, we're going to make it a little easier for for our people to understand, we're gonna try to get it online. That's gonna have to come through city council. There's gonna be some changes a little bit to the permit process because of the application. The application is very outdated. It's asking and requiring for like their firstborn and everything else. We also have a one-day cabaret permit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the one day. And that's done through the city, or through the chief. The chief of police can authorize that without the city council's approval because it's a one day. It's not gonna be an annual type of thing where remember OT Cafe and everything else where we're.
Unfortunately.
Okay, politics and silks and all of those back in the day. Those were your annual permit type of things. The one day is guided towards someone that wants live music and is going to have like a party, and it's going to be someplace on someone's private property or in public property or anywhere in the city, and that's going to be just a one-time, like a birthday party, or they're going to have like a little get-together. At Senior Center, we've had a few of them where they've had you know, a dance or something like that, and they bring in a DJ. The other understanding is people don't understand that DJ is constituted as live music. It doesn't have to be a band.
Right.
Live music singing, it's just audible music or however they do it. So that's it's an education factor that we have to educate the people that are applying for these. So being inside of CIS for the last year and a half, I've really learned a lot about the cabaret process now.
Okay, CIS.
I'm sorry, the detective unit. I take criminal investigation services.
Okay.
So that's, cabaret permits is not all I do. I have to run our detective unit as well. So I get.
30 years, that's good.
Yeah, so I've been down there for about a year and a half, but the other thing is that, so this is a big concern for the Watergate community, and I understand. So what we've been doing the last month is sending out the letter, letting them know that you guys are in violation of the Emeryville Municipal Code of the cabaret permit. They actually, like I said, have contacted us and are working with us because they want to be in compliance. So they filled out there's actually a one day that they want to do because they have set a party for the 17th or something like that. People have already paid money and they want to make sure they get that. They've also applied for next year's permit. So I just got these permits, or these applications, what was it, last week? And then we had to turn them back in because they hadn't paid the fees. So that's why I'm saying the process was kind of broken down a little bit. They weren't sure what they were supposed to be doing.
Let me stop you and ask you a question.
Okay.
If they don't have a cabaret license and they're using amplified music or any kind of entertainment, we have a complaint from Watergate. Can the police go in and immediately shut them down?
Absolutely, and they've been notified of that. The letter I sent out told them they're in violation of the Emeryville Municipal Code 5-4, which is the cabaret permit. If they don't have a permit with them at that location at the time that they're doing it, then the watch commander or the officer can go in and issue a citation to the on-duty manager and or the property owner or who's ever in charge of that party.
The important thing is, can they close it,
They
close
can,
it
oh,
down?
immediately, yes.
And they will.
And they will go in.
And all the shifts have been notified of
Yes,
it?
yes,
All right.
all our
So we
supervisors
have
have
an
been notified.
interim here that is, there is going to be no amplified music and no cabaret.
They do not have a permit at this time to have any music there at this time, and they're aware of that, because I've been in communication with their vice president of operations, Keir Fulmer is her name. And she has been, you know, she's been bending over backwards, running around trying to get everything done. She wants to be in compliance. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So she's been a big help. The other thing
Just
is,
reaffirm, to get an annual license, it has to go before the full council.
absolutely, yes, that is the process. What we do is they fill out the application. They bring it to City Hall, pay their permit fees, bring it back to the police department. We go in and we look at it. We basically, it's like conducting a small background investigation. What's going on at the property? What are you trying to get out of it? I mean, when we look at everything, we make sure that we're not bringing any bad guys in here that are gonna come in and try to rob and take money. Because you'll get the one-time raves that'll come in, and Oakland got hit hard on a couple of
Oh,
them.
you bet.
Yeah, so you'll see those things. Well, you don't know who's coming in, what type of clientele. But in Emeryville, we've been very lucky. And Dante did a great job when he was in CIS, you know, keeping a cartel on who was getting the cabaret permits and things like that. That's what we're trying to continue forward. So I've worked, like I said, I worked with Sarah Billings yesterday. I've rewrote an application process, and we're gonna try to get it through to the chief, up the chain of command, to city council, to allow us to go forward with it, because it's easier, less work, headache for the people that are trying to come in to get an application. it's a little less work or headaches for us as we get it, so we can actually know what we're looking at, saying, well, why do I need this type? I mean, they were bringing in tax returns and things like that from corporations, and I'm like going, this is kind of broken, we don't need all this.
Well, the other question is, it appears to me that this is an old, outdated ordinance, and we have to ask the legal department to come up with a new ordinance
Absolutely.
that reflects the reality. This is no longer an industrial town.
Correct.
This is a mixed-use, heavily residential city. So what was appropriate maybe in the 70s and 80s is certainly not appropriate today.
Correct, and I can tell you the other one, Alega Ballroom, has been operating in Emeryville for 22 years with no cabaret. And they are a dance club, and they have music, and they're there every night. A letter was sent out to them as well, telling them to cease and desist on without a cabaret. And I haven't heard anything back from them. And it was, I'm sorry.
Is it possible to interject, or do you have, in this process, do you?
No, you'll get time.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that I haven't heard anything back from them yet. So I'm waiting. I sent the letter out. I was a certified letter. I got the certified signed copy back that they received it. So I'm waiting to hear from them. But like I said, this isn't the only thing I do. So it's a type process going.
Have we ever received any complaints against the Allegro?
We did receive a complaint back in, what was it, '08, I believe. We have a letter on file. It actually came from the city of Oakland. It was another cabaret, another dance hall who lost a lot of business to Allegra because they wanted to know
But-
how come we have to go through all these hoops and they don't. And it was actually sent to the city attorney. It went through the city hall. It never came to us. And it was on file, and that's what I was told.
Never heard from any of the surrounding businesses?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Mm-mm.
Very interesting.
No, so back on Trader Vic's. So right now we're in the process. I'm going through the application. I'm looking at everything. I went out, took pictures of the location, how the close proximity that we're talking of, at least, I don't know how many different units. I mean, I can tell you it's probably about 25 units of what I can, mathematically, just how close in proximity. I mean, to open up your balcony and be able to probably spit on Trader Vic's where it's at, or throw a rock and hit it. So you can tell where they're at. The amplified music coming out is definitely going to be a noise
Plus
issue.
all the units that are down
On Anchor and
Admiral
Admiral,
Drive,
right.
where the music blasts right out into them.
Yes, yeah,
They're
but
not
that's
in
what I'm saying.
close proximity, but the sound travels, especially over the water.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. I took photos.
What are
going
we
through.
talking about in terms of time, Jason?
I'm hoping to have it done probably, because I'm on vacation next week, but I'll have it done probably the following week. And I'll have it to Captain Diotelevi and to the Chief Tejada. It'll be in their hands, and then once they're done, they'll bring it to City Council to put it on the agenda.
Do you include measurement, sound measurement in part of the?
I do not. I haven't done that yet because it hasn't really become an issue. This is like the first big issue that's come up with the sound. Everybody else that has done it has
Do you think you could do a little bit of research, call a few other police departments and see if they monitor for decibels?
Sure, I can
And
follow up.
just to see if that's like
I don't
become
even know
common
it's,
practice?
I know that Oakland, because we were looking at it the other day, Oakland has a permit, a cabaret, but I don't know if they actually do an investigation or background on it. And I don't know if the police department actually does it. There is a contact at the police department there, but I'll follow up with that and find out for the sound.
Do we have any public comment?
Yeah,
I'd like to start. First of all, I'd like to thank Jason so much for all your help and support on this, and thank the committee for having us on your agenda. I really appreciate it. First of all, before I start, we received a report from a planning consultant who's here.
No, that's not me, that's not me. Oh, unless, was it just the thing that
This one.
circulated?
Yeah.
Okay, well, those were just very preliminary, I just heard about this a week ago, so, and I'm just an individual.
Right. And so, and she raised a number of issues regarding the compatibility of a cabaret license in what Nora indicated in terms of even our new general plan and our zoning ordinance. Additionally, what was raised was an issue that was raised in a 2004 memorandum letter, which you all have, which questioned the partitioning of the public access boardwalk under the 1969 BCDC permit. There's an issue, there's a legal issue there. So I've talked with Buzz, and we wanted to go over the 7-page report and get a list of questions and comments and concerns to the appropriate, to this body here and to the appropriate departments in the city to investigate, to make sure that we're not recommending something that is against our ordinances or some legal issue. So rather than say, okay, go ahead and issue a cabaret permit, and it's really against our zoning ordinance, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So we'd like the committee and EPD to delay any action on the permit until we get you that list of questions and to the appropriate department. And we'll get that to you by the end of next week, if that's okay. That's under advisement, and you can discuss that and make your decision, but that's something that we would like to request. I'd like to, what I want to do today is I want to give you a little bit more of a personal flavor of some of the issues. I'm not going to go into a long litany of the issues and the problems we've had with Trader Vic's. There's an incredible, extensive public record in terms of the documents and emails that I and others have sent to the city and to Trader Vic's, as well as the Community Preservation Task Force, the Building and Planning Department, and the incident logs of the Emeryville Police Department. And I'm going to give a shout out to Ken because he's providing some public record right here with his recording, so thank you, Ken. So before I go on with this, I'll try to keep this fairly brief, but I really want to, for the folks here and for a lot of the folks that couldn't make it because the schedules work, some are fearful of coming or too shy, and some are physically unable to be here. All of us, sincere, heartfelt thanks to the Emeryville Police Department. You guys have been professional, you've supported us, given us kindness, and quite literally been our lifesavers. And I can't thank you enough, we can't thank you enough. So thank you very much. Second thing is I'd like to acknowledge 3 people from Trader Vic's who have worked with us. Yavuz Pavlivinar, I'm butchering his last name, David Gingras and Kier Fulmer, the current VP of Operations, as Jason indicated. They've actually changed the way Trader Vic's has communicated with us and have done a lot of operational changes that helped us. Unfortunately, the noise and the music has not been abated. So a real brief personal look at what happened, and I respect your time, but I've been working on this for 30 years, so it's been hard. I moved into F Building, which is right next to Trader Vic's, in July of '74, about a year out of the service, and I've been here since. When I first moved to when I first moved to Watergate, it's on my mind, you can tell. When I first moved to Watergate, Trader Vic's was a hopping place. They had a great chef, the restaurant was long lines, and the bar was like crowded. It was hard to get in. It was a very, very popular place. And the only complaints I had were, you know, the guests walking on the boardwalk late at night. But the biggest complaint was you had to have a tie and a jacket when you went in. And, you know, it wasn't too bad, but they, you know, if I forgot, they'd give me a jacket and a tie, but the ties, not so good. Now, I will note at this time of immense popularity and incredible crowds, there was no music and there was no patio. In 1982, I believe it was, the permits were pulled for that shed, that delivery shed and office on the southeastern corner. And I think it was built out a year or so afterwards. And after that, a gate magically appeared across the public access boardwalk to create their patio. And then sometime after that, a bar was built on the north wall of that shed, which I don't think the city was notified of. And that's another thing that might need to be checked. And somewhere in the mid to late 80s, they started having parties out there. And it started out with just guests being on the patio, and just the noise of the guests on the patio was obtrusive, but not torturous as it has been. In fact, I think, Nora, at our invitation, you came over one day on Admiral Drive, and you saw how noisy it was. However, in the late 80s and early 90s, it turned into a nightclub. Now, this is sort of counterintuitive because in '79, when Watergate converted to a condominium, around that time, the city got rid of Tia Maria's, Charlie Brown's, Silk's, and I think there was another one here, I can't remember. Got rid of all the nightclubs because it was a residential area. And yet we have a nightclub next to the largest residential area, one of the largest in California. It didn't make any sense. So we went round and round and round, and I went to, around that time, early 90s, I went to one of the managers there, and he said, we were here first. That was his response. And this was the response we got from management until Yavuz, as I mentioned, a couple decades later. In late 2000, I was working from home a lot. I was actually working a lot of extra hours from home due to a family situation. I was supporting my mom, and the weekends were intolerable. It was just ridiculous, and people will tell you how bad it was. And I finally got fed up, and in 2000, early 2000, I started a process of looking at some of the residents in our building, and I asked them what their issues, and a lot of issues came up. So I put up something in the laundry room asking for comments, and it kept being torn down. And then this was in 2001. This is documented. I sent this to you. In 2001, third time I put it up, it was covered with curse words and a threat, you know, because I was threatening Trader Vic's. And this went on, so I didn't put any more up. But we started working in about 2004, after about a year of pulling teeth, I got the city together with the police chief, and this is the document, Jason, that you worked off of, the memorandum letter in 2004, asking for a cabaret permit, indicating the issue with the boardwalk, and also spelling out the noise ordinance, which even if they have a cabaret permit, that doesn't eliminate their responsibilities under the noise ordinance, right? So in 2004, so we discussed that, and what happens is we talk with people, and for a month or two things go well, and then it just, because they have a turnover in site management and everything else, and it's just, perfect case in point, the cabaret permit. Oh, we didn't know we needed one. I mean, you know. So in 2010, as you know, we hired a lawyer, and we wrote a letter to the city and Trader Vic's asking them to abide by the memorandum letter. And coincident with that, just before that happened, I got a call from Tim Sutherland, the Watergate manager, and he said, I just got a call from Trader Vic's, and he said they wanted him to shut us up, right? And Tim, of course, said, no, that's not gonna happen. I can't make it happen. And by the way, I have a couple issues with Trader Vic's. To Keir Fulmer's credit, she addressed those issues right away, and we like Keir a lot. We hope she stays. And then when I was talking to Yavuz came in, and he de-escalated the entire situation. He stepped up. He was one of the operation managers. He came in, and he actually talked to me several times. We had a heart-to-heart discussion, and for the first time they were listening to us. And during our conversations, he indicated to me that Trader Vic's management thought we had slandered them and that we were troublemakers. Now, this confused, amused, and actually enraged some of our people because of, as I mentioned, we have an extensive public record. The truth is not slander. Additionally, we're not troublemakers. As you know, we go to Trader Vic's, we're community, volunteers, and quite frankly, we don't report everything with Trader Vic's. Perfect case in point, 5 weeks ago on a Sunday, someone was using a power tool on their deck. I went down there, and this was on a Sunday morning, I went down there and I said, do you have a permit? He said, no, and he started backing up. He said, I don't care, just don't use the power tools, right, and do handwork. So we're not, the valet continually parks in front of Fort Anchor, they're lined up. We don't call about that. They park buses and trucks in there in Anchor, we don't call right away. And they park in our garages sometimes, we don't call. There was an incident that someone parked in a friend's place, went down, we were gonna call and get it towed. We said, no, let's call Watergate Patrol. They came over, oh, I know who he is, walked into Trader Vic's. He came out and he said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to park with my dog in the sun in the parking lot. So they parked underneath our garage. We didn't report that. We want them to be successful. In any event, after Yavuz, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago, we started making some headway, and then of course the sound came back, and it was just as bad. And we were contemplating our next move, and we decided against it, but it was going to be pickets and a media event. We were so frustrated at that point. So I'm gonna cut some of the rest of my remarks to relay something that's a little bit difficult for me. It's a little emotional, and it's hard for me to discuss this, but this is reality. I've been working with Watergate community on a number of issues. One of them is security. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think it was, I met Fran Chiapetta and Mary Farewell, who are heading up the resident oversight group, doing good work there. And because we had a confluence of ideas about security, and they had indicated that they had also some problems with Trader Vic's extensively. Now, I was quite chagrined because I thought I knew everything, but I didn't by a long shot. They had brought up a number of issues. And one of the issues they brought up, and this is a hard one, was she said that there were a lot of people that use earplugs in their apartments at night so that they can exist, and they'll either turn up the TV or whatever. And I know I wear earplugs, right? So we don't want to call, we don't want to bother the police, we really don't. But this brought back a memory, and that memory was in 2014. I think some of you know I had some health issues, and I was homebound for about 5 months, and incapacitated physically, limited mobility for about 9. And when you're in pain, or you're isolated, or in your house, and you have this outside noise coming in, it is torture. It is terrible. So, that brings me to the crux of the matter. There was a lady who moved into 5 Admiral about, I'm thinking about 15 years ago. And she reminded me of my mother, I'm sorry. And I'm a New York Italian, and I'm friendly, and I try to say hi, and she was very reserved. And you know, and I'd see her a lot, and this was 5 Admiral, 4th floor, right by the elevator, and you know, I'd be going out, and I'd see her, and as the years went by, she lost weight and stature and became more reserved. And to the point where she didn't acknowledge people, and whether she didn't recognize me or didn't hear me or whatever, I don't know. But this is what happens getting older. You do this. I mean, I saw this with my mother before she passed away, so I understood. One day about 4 years ago, there was a series of events on Trader Vic's, parties and everything else, and it was the talk of the hallway. And people were asking me what's going on. I said, you know, I'm working on it. You know, I'm trying to deal with it. I'm working on it. And it was over and over and over. So one day I'm coming around the corner, and she had just, in her slippers and her robe, had just come out of the garbage room and asked me, do you hear the noise from Trader Vic's? And I said, I'm working on it. You know, I'm doing stuff. And she said something, and I guess I wasn't listening. And she turned, I didn't understand, and she turned away and walked into her room, into her place, in her robe and her slippers. And she passed away, what, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And from understanding, going through my stuff, I realized that I never asked her, how is Trader Vic's impacting you? I don't know if she just heard us talking in the hall. I don't know if this caused her to isolate more. I don't know. I didn't ask, and I was sick about that. You don't have to ask. There are a lot of seniors here, and a lot of seniors that can't be here, that are in the same circumstances. And this noise is torture. This is mental and emotional suffering to us. And I know the city doesn't want that. I know that this new city council is against noise and against impacting the quality of life of all our citizens, but particularly those that can't defend themselves. So I absolutely request that we don't give them any cabaret, even of one day, because this noise is torture to us. It causes us suffering. I was mentioning to Mary and Fran yesterday, in a beautiful sunset that we had, I was opening my sliding glass door, and I was like this. I was cringing, and I was listening to see if there was noise. And Fran and Mary said they did the same thing. This is PTSD. This is what this group has caused us. So, like I say, this is a painful thing. You don't have to ask the question. The question's been answered to you. This is hurting us immensely. So we ask you not to give a one-day permit, and we will be giving you more information as to why no cabaret license should ever be given at this point. It's just not applicable. And thank you for your time.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just want to respond, thank you for sharing all of that. It really is important to tell the story about the journey that you've been on that got you to here. And I think you've probably touched everybody at the table with your story. And what I want to emphasize is that you should call us, and you should tell the residents to call us, because that's what we're here for. You're not creating any issues here by calling us. And I went back and I looked at how many times we've been called this year, last year, and the year before, because I thought this was going to be a big issue, and it wasn't. From a statistical viewpoint, we only had 4 calls this year. We had 11 in 2014, and we had 7 in 2013 that were specifically for noise. So it tells me that people are not reaching out to us. That's what we're here for. So I want to encourage you to do that. Let us handle it. Don't live through it. Let us handle it. If there is something that they're violating, we will stop it. And it lets us know what you're dealing with. It lets us know that, you need our help, and you feel that you're not alone in dealing with it. So please pass the word along. If there is a problem, just call us. That's what we're here for. And we couldn't be much closer to you than we are. So please do that.
If I can comment, I did talk to a dispatcher, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, but she had indicated they don't write up every incident. And I know that there were more than 4 calls to the police this year. I know that because I made 4 calls to the police, and other people have made 4 calls.
So our calls are documented, and the origination of the call is documented. So when we search for calls for service, we put in your address, your location, and this is what was populated when we did that.
Wow.
So we may have situations where maybe somebody called and just had a conversation with a dispatcher, but the calls for service were the numbers I gave you, where an officer was requested. So we really don't want community members thinking that they have to deal with these situations alone. This is what we're here for. And
So Chief, would you suggest to Joe and his group that not only that they call, but when they call, they specifically say, I'm calling because of the noise, it's, against the ordinance, et cetera, et cetera,
Okay.
et cetera. Be specific about why you're calling, and then, perhaps you as a group can keep track of how many people call in.
I have an additional question, Chief Dowd. Is a cell phone address specific? Because it's geolocated, so you would see it in your records as well, besides a home phone?
So when we look for these calls for service, we're using the address. So we're not looking at the phone number itself, we're looking at the address the person is giving us as to the location the
Their
officer.
reported address?
Yeah.
Okay.
The location the officer needs to respond to is what we're looking at.
Can I make a comment? A lot of residents don't call, and it's just not Anchor and Admiral. I don't hear because I'm on this side, but I know a lot of people along Captain, along that boardwalk. They don't call because they think Trader Vic's has a right to the noise. Some of them say, we can't do anything because Trader Vic's has his noise there, and they have a right, I guess they think they have a cabaret, whatever. But I know a lot of people won't call because they think Trader Vic's is supposed to have those cabarets or have a right or permission to have those parties out there. They think it's just part of Trader Vic, so they don't call. So there are more than just 4 people calling to complain. Because I've talked to people, so we can't call that, that's part of their restaurant, that's part of, so they endure that noise, and it does travel down that boardwalk. Because I walk a lot, and sometimes just for sunset, and I'm just coming out at Commodore, and I can hear the party on the boardwalk. So that means all those people along there probably can hear that too. I'm just walking along there. So that's maybe why you don't get a lot of calls. They don't think they have any power at all to complain about Trader Vic's.
And we have a sergeant specifically to Watergate. That's his area, Sergeant Alton.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable, very sharp. Anytime I gave his email, and it's not just specifically for Watergate, we have them for the whole city. But yours is Sergeant Alton, and I specifically gave it Alton to you guys because he's very sharp. And,
Yes, met with him.
Very nice
Excellent.
guy. So anytime you want a meeting, he's easy, and he will inform you on whatever you need to talk about. He'll listen.
And I want to make another comment to the floor. We want to thank, it's very nice and comforting to see police officers walking Watergate streets. And we want to thank you. That is a lot of support, and we do feel more secure, when we see homeless people around in the garages, when you're looking around to see, is this a time we're going to see an officer? Because we don't confront them, and by the time we call our proper patrol, they're gone, or hiding, or whatever. So we want to thank you again for your support.
It's a slap in the face always when we get crime in our city, and we all take it personally. But it's really a slap in the face when they do it right next door to us.
Yeah.
The police department, come on.
I'd like to actually make some comments pertaining to the regulatory environment. I'm Louise Engel, and I really don't really know a number of people here. Nora knows me. I've been a resident of Watergate for over 25 years. I've had a background in planning and zoning entitlement in this 9-county Bay Area, as well as in Oregon and the Midwest, and that's for over 30 years. So I have a significant background in dealing with permitting and
Louise,
entitlement.
speak a little louder because
Oh,
of
sure.
the videotape.
Louise, why don't you want to use this chair?
No, that's all right, I'll just speak up. And also, I had the opportunity just recently to graduate from the Citizens Police Academy, so I learned a lot about the police. It was great, enjoyed that activity, it was very helpful. I have actually 3 questions, and what was your name? I somehow missed it.
Sergeant Bassetti, Jason.
Bassetti,
Yes,
okay.
you can go with Jason.
Right. Before I can really, I wanted to review this. I'd heard about it about a week ago and got involved. But I'm not clear on 3 aspects of the property as pertains to land use, zoning, and other regulations in the city. For zoning, is Trader Vic's part of the marine zone or the residential medium high density?
I wouldn't be able to answer that right now.
Okay,
I'd have
because
to
it
check the
does
plans.
impact, my comments are going to pertain mostly to, and focus on the land use, zoning, and public welfare regulations within the city as it pertains to a business, a piece of property, and the uses there, and the uses proposed. So that's actually pretty important. All of Watergate is within the residential medium high density. And actually, a restaurant, bar, and potentially a cabaret is a permitted, well, it's a use that's not incompatible, so it could be there. And the same for a marine zone. However, then the next question is, and it may be, is the use at Trader Joe's, or Trader Vic's, conforming or non-conforming? Because that's also going to impact how the laws apply. Anybody know on that?
I think, Louise, if I may, maybe we can get together with.
Okay, well let me, because I think from hearing from Nora that it is a non-conforming use, just hearing the history
Grandfather, it
of
was
people.
there probably before any of the rules that we have in place now.
Yeah, so it's likely a non-conforming use. And with a non-conforming use in this city, as in many others, it's the right of that property owner, that person in that business, to continue use under a non-conforming regulations and such. And so they can apply and get permissions to maintain their use. But what I'm hearing about is this is an expansion of use to a cabaret use. It's a restaurant, it's a bar, and now they're asking for a cabaret. Within the city regulations, there's specific provisions which we're all becoming acquainted with pertaining to a cabaret. So I would assert that the very first thing that needs to be determined is by the city attorney, is to make a legal determination. Is this an expansion of use? Because if it is an expansion of use there, then a whole lot of different separate regulations apply. And whether it's conforming or non-conforming. Okay, so under an expansion of a non-conforming use, I'll just take it kind of under this assumption that it's under that. They can be expanded, but they have to get a minor conditional use permit. So I'm very concerned hearing other remarks made earlier that people are proceeding as if all they need to do is just get a cabaret license. Because even for, if it's a permitted use, if it's a conforming use, to get a cabaret license, they'd have to get a conditional use permit. I've heard nothing here. When I contacted the city, I'm still waiting on information back. I haven't heard anything pertaining to that process. I'll get to that in just a minute.
This is a permissive use, it's the total discretion of the city, so it's not really a land use question, it's permissive use. It's a total discretion of the city.
The cabaret?
Yeah.
No, there are regulations that apply to.
I know, I was in the business for 22 years.
Okay, well, as I say, I think that the very first step would be to have the city attorney then interpret the law, the regulations that apply, because from my reading of the ordinances and such, This is an expansion of a use. Again, restaurant bar is there, either conforming or non-conforming. Now they're asking for an additional use there. And the city has all sorts of regulations that pertain to the cabaret use. In any case, getting back to, if it is a non-conforming use and they want to expand, they do need to get a conditional use permit. And they need to provide a proof that they can comply with the regulations. And among those regulations are performance standards that pertain, amongst other things, to noise. And as part of that, so again, I think that there are some really necessary critical points in the regulations that need to be addressed that I haven't heard anything about so far in these remarks. Maybe Sarah has looked into this, but I need that assurance before anything like this proceeds to issuing any sort of license. And as far as the performance standards regarding noise, it's not up to the city to figure out, are they conforming, do they, what is the baseline, what is the ambiance level in Watergate. It's up to the person making the proposal to the city, i.e. Trader Vic's. They need to do a baseline study on what is the existing ambiance noise people were making, or ambiance noise level conditions. People were remarking how you walk along the boardwalk. At night, I can hear cats. I'm on 4th level. I can hear conversations along the street. I can hear the cats. I can hear the dogs, the raccoons rummaging around. So we're on a little peninsula. It's very quiet. We're surrounded, and the water also amplifies and carries sound. So it's quite a different circumstance. So basically, if there's going to be, even for a license, I would assert that at the very minimum is that they do some studies, get a baseline study done, also then prepare simulation studies on what would be the potential noise level for amplified activities, entertainment, whether it be an individual, a combo, a band, whatever it be. You can do simulation studies like that through computers and such. That, though, would be the responsibility of Trader Vic's, presenting that kind of evidence to the city. And then within the city regulations, there are performance standards, and they stipulate where you can go above or below certain levels of noise. So I think that I'm glad I came today. I talked a little bit with Nora yesterday by phone, but I'm particularly concerned. I hear that you're moving ahead, and I'm acquainted, having looked into other issues over the years pertaining to Watergate and things that are happening around us. So I know that these are older regulations and such, but I'm particularly concerned that I'm hearing that city staff are just moving ahead, doing kind of a fix-it and such, when for this particular issue, it's not just issuing of a license. It's dealing with a land use and how does that interface with the applicable regulations. And I really am concerned now. I think that it's not just an easy over the night or in a couple of weeks issue a license sort of thing. That there are some definite regulations within the city that pertain to this activity, and they need to be addressed.
The one thing I have not heard mentioned here is property values. The people who live over on that side have a terrific view of the city, and they paid for it, either in their rent or in the purchase price. And when you have this, in spite of the discomfort, when you have this stuff going on all the time, what does that do to the value of your investment? I'm insulated. I'm on Commodore at 3, so I'm up here near Powell. I have a little view of the Bay Bridge, but I don't look at it much. But I wonder, did anybody, were any of you around Sunday night when the bongo drums went up? Where were they?
That was actually in a park in Oakland, beyond the Marine.
Right, and it sounded to me like it was right downstairs. And it was horrible. It went on non-stop for a half an hour. I could even hear the voices.
It's like 6.5 hours.
Yeah, it went on until about 10 at night.
If it had been right down below me, I would have gotten a gun.
Well, the Port of Oakland responded, and they're not gonna be doing that anymore.
Oh, I could hear them.
Which is very helpful.
Yeah.
But if I had an investment over there, I would be talking to a lawyer.
Are there any other public comments?
Yeah, I'd
on
like to
this issue?
make one comment and then Fran. About the one, thank you so much, that was wonderful. About the sound report. All right, I sent the city an analysis of the sound report that I got from the planning department. And although it's the responsibility of the applicant, it needs to be supervised by the city. And the reason for that is the sound report was generated without input from the city, without any residents, on a foggy day when they were monitoring their band, and it was inside, and it was crafted, all right? So just because they provide a sound report, and you have my analysis of that sound report, I think it was totally inadequate. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Before I even start, nobody from Trader Vic's has shown up this morning? 'Cause my speech is sort of geared to them, but I will read it anyhow. And also, you guys are so intelligent, I'm feeling a little intimidated. Anyhow, but I'm a New Yorker too, and I'm gonna get down to the nitty-gritty. Before I begin my speech, I would like it to go on record that I fully support Mr. Lutz's sentiments and feelings. I live directly across from Trader Vic's and want to mention that my whole floor and most of the 8 Admiral wing in the A building is owned by seniors who cannot be here today. That said, I would like to start my speech. During the past few weeks, Trader Vic's has been relatively quiet and peaceful. The difference is so noticeable that I have actually been able to hear myself think, and I've actually been able to enjoy being home. Imagine not having to turn up the TV just to drown out the sounds of screaming drunks and terrible, unmelodic thumping music. Imagine a nice quiet dinner at home. Imagine being able to read a book. Imagine wanting to eat out at Trader Vic's again. I have a solution. All this can happen and be fixed without having to disturb the peace or wasting everybody's time, including the Emeryville Police Department. Just get a great chef. People flock to destination restaurants for delicious food. We have a treasure in Trader Vic's. Its ambiance is special and charming. Loud music and screaming drunks is not the way to achieve a successful restaurant. A cabaret license is not the way to keep Trader Vic's as a viable restaurant business. Excellent food is what makes a restaurant successful. Try it.
I hope you're gonna send that to Trader Vic's.
Well, I was hoping somebody would be
Since
here.
they aren't here, you have the guy's address.
Yeah.
Give it to
Yeah.
me.
I wanted to say this in front of the city council meeting again, so it will be.
Tuesday, the 6th,
Okay.
at 7:15.
Okay, it's just warn you that, read it again.
Any other comments?
I've been asked to read this letter from someone who could not make the meeting tonight.
Mary.
Yeah.
My name is Mary Farrell. I am a new commissioner on the Emeryville Council on Aging, and I live at 5 Admiral Drive, number 315 at Watergate. I have lived in Watergate since 1996. I am currently out of state. A friend is reading this letter to you to share my concern. Please do not issue a cabaret license to Trader Vic's. When I first moved here, Trader Vic's was a quieter restaurant. I rarely heard the noise. I went there sometimes twice a week after work with friends. I also entertained out-of-state friends and relatives there. Over time, the noise increased so much within Trader Vic's that I stopped going there. The sound of screaming drunks, the word screaming is no exaggeration, amplified music, live music, and drumming made it impossible to enjoy my home, which overlooks the boardwalk. When it was egregious, I would call the restaurant and ask them to tone down the noise. There was never a positive result from that. On 2 occasions, I actually went in person to request that they tone down the noise, to no avail. My worst experience was in July 2014. I called them twice and went over in person. I had to shout to be heard, no results. I then called the police twice. They went over to Trader Vic's twice. When there was no change, I called the police again. They said they had talked to the people in charge and there was nothing more they could do. The policeman said I could make a citizen's arrest. I agreed to do that. The policeman said he'd call me back when he was ready for me to sign the papers for the citizen's arrest. He called me around half an hour later and said we would not be doing the citizen's arrest because the people at Trader Vic's would refrain from so much noise in the future. He said that the music and screaming finally stopped. I told him that I still wanted to make the citizen's arrest because this level of noise has been going on for years and they never cooperate. This is a residential neighborhood. There has to be noise ordinances they violate. I did not know what to do. Now we have started the residents oversight group to work towards resolving this and other problems. The noise abuse continued unabated. It often started at 11:30 a.m. and goes all day. I cannot sit on my balcony on a hot day. I have to go inside, close all my windows, wear earplugs, and turn up my television volume loud just to try to drown out the noise. Trader Vic's noise is a proven detriment to our residential community. Let's bring back the quiet restaurant bar we used to love. Help us protect our quality of life in Emeryville. Please do not issue a cabaret license to Trader Vic's. Sincerely, Mary Farrell.
Any other public comments on this issue?
Ken, do you are you just adjusting your camera, or do you want to make a comment?
No, no comment.
Scott, this is ongoing, a very serious matter, and it's disturbing to know that Trader Vic's is coming to you for a one-day permit. How do you feel about proposing to the city council next Tuesday an emergency action that a moratorium on any kind of cabaret permits until we address some of the issues that Ms. Engel has brought up, certainly all the issues that the rest of the
I feel very
people.
good about that.
I would propose that we do that next Tuesday.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
That would be having the council act on a moratorium on all of the permits, including one-day permits, until we address some of these very substantive issues. And that is, as Ms. Engel said, that's not the kind of thing that can be done within a week or a month. It's probably going to take some real serious digging and dedicated time. So, but it's time. The time is here.
Nora, I think we should say one-day permits from Trader Vic's, not citywide. Are you saying citywide?
I'm saying citywide because what is an issue, an ongoing issue for Watergate, we have a totally different city that now than we had when we instituted these programs. So I think it's time we stop, don't issue any one-day permits until we get a resolution to the problem.
And that resolution could be had on October 6th? Is that what
If
you're
we
saying?
have an emergency vote and we get 3 votes.
Okay, it
All
seems
right.
like citywide, it could be an issue. There's so many
Yeah.
legitimate one-day uses.
Would that be, so I think it would be important to consider whether the use is for private property or public property, nonprofit organizations who have maybe annual events. There are several.
Noise is noise is noise.
Right, so,
Yeah, I think that we could get in trouble here with some,
I think we
Mr.
could-
Gina would have to, if we're gonna do a.
I
mean,
think we get in more trouble if we target one business and say, hold up the permit for Trader Vic's. If you make it citywide and you act in a timely fashion, you're probably gonna have something
Well, you have
before.
a point there.
Yeah,
You want to evaluate the cabaret process, is what I understand
exactly,
you saying.
because Trader
One day
Vic's
to
would probably come
annual.
back with their slew of lawyers and say, you're targeting one business.
Yes.
But there's the
And,
park down there too, and there's noise coming from there, that Marina Park, so maybe it could just be on the peninsula, because the boats blast music too. you know, I don't know if you segregate out a part of the.
Well, that's
city.
the cabaret
That would be
permit
a
process.
cabaret.
The cabaret is for anybody that has live music.
Right.
Or it would be any type of, yeah, it could be a one-day event, like you're having a birthday party and you're gonna have live dancing and you're gonna bring in a big band for this party. They would need a one-day permit for that.
Jason, do you know if we have authorized any one-day permits that are already authorized?
No, we don't have, the only one-day permit I have sitting on my desk right now is from Trader Vic's.
Okay.
I
And
have,
how many have we done this year?
4 or 5. Because
Yeah.
Bay Street does it on their, when they do it out in the middle of their little area between.
Deb, what do you say about this?
I definitely agree when you say that you can't just target Trader Vic's, but I definitely know that it's gonna hurt, the city as a whole. So,
They
we
can
do have some
what-
events coming up, we
How
have
many,
live bands
how
every
many
weekend.
times do you get a permit?
You have live bands every weekend?
Yeah,
Where?
in the plaza.
Can I
They're
do-
You don't
violating
have a
the cabaret.
cabaret license.
That would be on
You
Bay
can,
Street.
you can actually only play, you can actually only apply for a cabaret once every 4 months.
The wine.
What's that?
Once
Yeah,
every-
you can only have one every 4 months on
Every
one
4
day.
months.
You can apply for 1 a quarter is what it is.
1 a quarter.
So what is happening right now with city staff is Sergeant Bassetti, Sarah, and somebody else from city staff. So Sarah from community planning, which would be the CUP issue, they're all getting together to form an in-house staff committee to look at these kinds of, all the permits, so that everybody understands the process, so that if there are any, like, conditional use permit issues, then Sarah is at the table to talk about that. You know, this arena is for public safety, so CUPs fall into a whole nother city department. So what happened, I think, is it you?
Mhm.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I think Charlie put this together, did he, or Sarah?
Sarah put it, Sarah and I have been, because like I
Yeah.
said, the whole process for cabarets is basically hasn't been touched or
It's-
looked
it's
at,
crazy.
application wise.
Yeah,
And so-
so there
Okay,
is
it's a
something.
1970 system in a 2015 world.
Yes. So there
Climate
is,
change.
just so that everybody knows, there is movement on city staff side, headed up by Jason and Sarah, to look at this process and make sure.
Well, maybe a
Everything
moratorium
is
will
under-
kind of light a fire under
Go
that.
for it.
But
Hey, wait a
let's
minute.
get back to the one
We
day
have a
thing.
question over here.
So if Trader Vic's comes in for one day, whatever that day is, what day is that day?
I believe it's October 17th.
That's a Friday night. Then they can't come back for 4 months for another one-day permit.
For another one day, but they can apply for, they've applied for, and I thought I put it out there. Okay, so they applied for the one day, but they've also applied for the annual for the end of the year, to cover the rest of the end of the year, and then they applied for the following year. They have 3 permits that they're looking at.
My immediate concern is the one day.
Right.
All right, let's talk about that then.
Can I
If-
make a
if-
But we don't want to damage the
Yeah,
rest
we-
of the
we-
city, like Bay Street and maybe
Right.
people having a party in Doyle Hollis Park or something like that.
Let's hear from Mr. Bukowski, who's been
I think
waiting.
it's total overkill to just say, well, let's end everyone in the city. I mean, it's a totally permissive permit. You don't have to issue it. You can single out any business. It's totally permissive. They have no way to come back at you. And it's very common to target nightclubs and places that have problems. It's not unusual to do
That just seems intuitively so reasonable,
I mean-
that the police chief would be able to just say, no, your business, we're not issuing you one day, and it's not a legislative matter for one day. Is that right, or?
It certainly comes through me for approval, and I haven't seen any of it yet, so I do have the authority to say, no, we're not gonna move this forward.
And there's all kinds of issues that
Yeah.
come about with that. Sometimes we can't issue it because we don't have enough officers on the street or there's not enough parking, or it creates
there's
too much
all-
of a hazard
That makes sense, too.
to the public. So we do deny these. It's the totality of the whole situation.
Jason can deny it at his level and say, no, there's not enough here to move it forward either.
Let's put the button on Jason.
Great, yes, Chief John, I appreciate that. I'm walking out with a target.
Jason, I'll just be nice and enjoy your vacation.
Yeah, okay, I'll see you later. I'm out of here.
Okay, I think we beat this to death, but we'll still bring it up and see what they say on the 6th.
Okay.
And thank you all for coming and
Thank
being
you.
so
Okay, I'm leaving now.
eloquent. It's a
Thank
serious
you very
problem,
much.
serious
Appreciate it
problem.
very much,
It is.
really do.
All right, moving along.
Okay, information items. Alameda County Fire Department.
Well, this is gonna be boring compared to all that. Starting with our total emergency calls, and this is lacking because it was closed a day early because today's the first of the month. So I had to get this information yesterday. So we had 185 calls as of midnight, 24 hours ago. Anyway, long and short, we ran 15 more calls than this.
This is city, Emeryville only?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Engine 34 next door ran 9 calls yesterday, 3 after midnight, which aren't on here.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're tired. And then Station 35 ran, I think, 6. So we're about 201 calls for the month. 2 of those were building fires under $5,000, and one was a light fixture, and one was, they're both light fixtures. Some sort of electrical arcing. Obviously not a significant incident because they were only there for about half an hour on those 2 incidents. We had no hazardous materials incidents, no vehicle fires. We had 3 outside fires. One ended up being a pig roast, one was a tree, and one was a cigarette lighting some grass.
Oh, and where was the pig roast?
We weren't
Of a tree.
I think the pig roast was on.
Yeah.
Smoke investigation pig roast was on, how do you say Biodry?
Beaudry.
Beaudry.
Upper Beaudry or lower Beaudry?
5860.
Oh, Upper Beaudry,
Beaudry.
okay.
So someone was probably doing a pig roast in their backyard and fire department was called.
Wow.
False alarms were 39. We had 9 investigations. Investigations are your smoke investigations, odor investigations, etc. Service calls were 6. Emergency medical calls, which is our primary responses, we had 126, plus the 15 from yesterday, so about 140. No significant events for the month, which is always good for the city, always non-exciting for us. We like big incidences. Of course, we don't want that happening.
Bite your tongue.
We call that DOC training we're doing.
No.
As far as our fire inspections, they are underway. I've talked to the company officers. This, which I didn't put on here, our fire department was gone, we had 142 personnel fighting wildland fires in the state for 66 days. So with that, our vacations, we train often in summer because of the weather. The company officers are doing inspections, but they're not in full force. We usually start going end of the year, beginning of the year, we start going more full force on our fire inspections. All of them have their inspection lists. All of them have started. It's just a matter of gearing up. And again, we're gonna have a significant amount done, probably certainly first quarter of the year. That's where most of our inspections get done within our fire department. One of the things I was tasked with was, speaking of Trader Vic's, as its inspection, it was inspected in March of 2015 and was in compliance as of March 15th, 2015. One of the other things that the homeowners association across the street, and you're one of them, right?
Yeah.
Was the barbecue, use of barbecues in multi-family dwellings. So I had a fire marshal print up usage in multi-family dwelling, and long or short, you cannot have any, we'll go to paragraph 2. All charcoal burners shall not be operated on combustible balconies or within 10 feet of combustible construction. The only exception is where buildings, balconies, and decks are protected by sprinkler systems. And I believe your facilities have sprinklers now in the hallway.
No, only in the hallway.
Just the
So
hallway.
This is not applicable.
So long or short, you can have no charcoals on your balcony, so no charcoal barbecues.
And does the property patrol people know that?
Yeah, we've documented that, and it's going to the office. The main office, Bargate office, has a.
That's in our rules, I think. No
It's
charcoal.
in the rules of.
So anyway, this is the state
Yes.
fire marshal mandate. So the next paragraph talks about LPG, liquid petroleum propane gas. All propane cook devices having an LP gas container with a water capacity greater than 2.5 pounds shall not be located on combustible balconies or within 10 feet of construction, no exceptions. So what this is saying is you can have a barbecue, propane barbecue on your balcony, but it is those very small containers. The ones we always see in the
Yeah.
stores,
Yeah.
those are 1 pound. The typical camping 1 pound. This says 2.5 pound. Try to find a 2.5 pound, and I would love to find out where you get it.
Get it.
A 2.5 pound would be, you know,
Yeah.
propane
Yeah.
bottle about so-so. So basically, your barbecues from Costco that have a little propane thing on the side, those are the only acceptable barbecues you folks can have in your facility on a balcony.
But
Um,
I thought Watergate said no barbecuing at all on the balcony.
I don't know, but I.
No,
the-
propane, in the, propane is allowed, it's in the rule book that you can have.
But it can only be the 2.5 pound or less.
Yeah.
It's your small
Small.
propane barbecue.
Correct.
Now, I did look up online, they have adapters for those small 1 pounders that you can put the big head on for your large propane. But the thing is, if someone uses that, they're gonna have one barbecue and they're out of gas. So it's gonna be very expensive for someone to try to do a large barbecue with those little tanks. So if there's any with the 5-gallon capacity, you know, the big tanks, obviously they're not allowable. So it looks like you're down to just your basic camping type of barbecue. And electric cooking appliances are not prohibited.
Okay, thank you very much. No big incidents in Emeryville.
I know, we've had enough in the state, we've been
Right,
all over the
right.
place, so.
Are we allowed to ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay, this might be a combination of fire and police. I live at the end of 8 Admiral, which is a big turnaround, and people park there all the time. And we've had 2 nights, 2 cases where the fire department came out. They cannot turn around. They can't get through.
Is it a red curb?
Yes.
So call the
yes.
cops.
And the police would cite them for that.
Well, that's what my question was. The fire department was, back up the street and had to come in, and they couldn't get the vehicle in. That just doesn't seem right. Would you guys, is that important? Would you get there fast enough?
Absolutely, we do our best.
You guys don't
Yeah.
do anything. I was hoping that you'd take that big old truck and just,
Sideswipe it.
just push it.
We're self-insured, it's very expensive.
Just push it out of their way. It's just very annoying.
So anyway, just in addition to that, just to let you know what's going on in our department, I did say that we were gone for literally over 2 months on this state fires with 142 personnel, which was very exhaustive. We had 30+ people a day gone at any given time. I did toot our horn about Urban Shield, and I will again, because I'm very proud of my folks, and I'm in charge of special operations in our fire department. We did compete in Urban Shield, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that. It's a Homeland Security funded event with UASI, Urban Area Securities Initiative, where police, fire, EMS agencies all get together on a very large scale incident over a 2-day period. Now, it's more geared for police departments. They have many police departments out there. The fire department is only 1/16 of the event, but it's 2 days, 30 to 40 fire departments. And we did compete on the water in our maritime event. We competed hazmat, and we also competed USAR, Urban Search and Rescue, which is our heavy rescue located in San Leandro. And we did come in first place for Urban Search and Rescue. Again, we came in first last year. We came in first place on the maritime, out on the water. 2 of the gentlemen worked next door here at Station 34. And also our hazmat team, we're supposed to have 7 people, but it got disseminated the night before with sick leave, a person's grandmother dying, and also going out of county for those fires we're talking about. So we only had 4 of our original team. We had to create a team 6 o'clock Sunday morning, and we came in 6th place, and I'm sure we would have placed much higher if we had our team. We just finished interviews yesterday. We interviewed 447 folks for 24 firefighter positions.
Wow.
We did that for 6 days, 5 boards going for 6 days. We're glad that's over, so we get our offices back. So that's just, we got a lot of movement, a lot of people retiring.
Busy summer.
Yeah, we're down 22 captain's positions right now, 4 battalion chiefs.
Good
which
Lord.
We're testing for in December. We'll hopefully fill most of those positions. And you have a question?
My question was that at the last city council meeting, when you gave your report and the committee reports, I had left early, but I did watch it I had DVR'd it, and I thought you said there were a lot of vacancies that were gonna be filled this year, and it just sounded like an abnormal number, and I wasn't sure if that if I heard it correctly or
I'm
never.
not, I wouldn't say it's abnormal, because I think all police and fire departments are losing a lot of their personnel people. There was a big hiring back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and now all those folks are retiring. In our fire department in particular, we have just a huge amount of retirements in the next 5 years, extreme amount. 5 to 10 years. And then
So that was one of my
It's gonna
questions,
slow
was
down.
whether-
We had a huge hiring, when I got hired back in the 80s, we had a big hiring going on then, kind of slowed down through consolidations. Since 1993, we're now at 9 agencies, because we do Emeryville,
Yeah.
Union City, Newark, San Leandro, Dublin, unincorporated Alameda County, Castro Valley, and both laboratories. So when we did all these consolidations, we reduced fire chiefs, battalion chiefs, because that would have been nine fire chiefs at one point. We now have one.
Yeah.
It would have been several deputy chiefs. We now have one. It would have been, I couldn't tell you how many battalion chiefs. We now have 12. So we've reduced, in particular, upper staff, which kind of is not good for us folks because we have a lot more work.
It's good for your character.
It's good. Not sleeping at night is not good. So with that said, we taking on agencies and people, we've reduced staffing on the lower levels too, but we just haven't hired that much. Well, I can't say we haven't hired that much, but we're losing a third of our fire department in the next 5 to 7 years, so which is 115 more people.
That's what I was curious about, was whether it was an abnormal number of people leaving, or if it was people retiring, or just
It's
what was
mostly
causing
retirements.
that. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, let's move on to police department crime statistics.
No, Adrian. So you get me again.
Oh, you do more than
See?
than cabaret.
Just not just doing cabarets. And Adrian always had wanted me to tell you that this was also cut short because the first, and she actually would recommend that we move the meeting kind of mid of the month, because to get all the stats up to date, because usually the first Thursday of the month, it takes more time for her to get all those stats up to date. So she said she would recommend to try to put it in like more of the middle of the month for this meeting, just so they could get the stats accurate, more accurate than they're.
Let me understand, you want to move the public safety meeting
Instead of the first Thursday?
to the middle of the month?
Like the second Thursday would probably, she said, just so she gets, because the time frame, like yesterday, with her training, she's on training right now. That's where I'm filling in for her, but she said, I've always tried to push to see if we could get it to move, because like the first Thursday, today is the first. So yesterday ended the month for
Scott,
us.
what do you think about that?
Well,
That's something you guys have to, she just asked me to
Well,
recommend it.
it seems fine to me right off, but maybe there's some consequence in why it's been set to the first Thursday.
Just arbitrary, what do you think, chief?
Whatever. It would be nice to be able to reflect a full month when we report out,
Yeah.
but it's your decision.
Food for thought on that, because I was thinking the same thing, because I had to do this a day early, have our gal print up everything.
I have no objection to
You
the
know, I have no
second
objection.
You
Thursday.
can do first Thursday of the month, unless the first Thursday is a Thursday, and then that one moves to the second
Or
Thursday.
just second
Have it on
Thursday,
the
I don't
or
think-
just second.
Yeah, the second, yeah,
Second Thursday.
that's what Adrian
But,
recommended.
What about the time? Is the time good for staff or not good?
We're a 24/7 week
How is
operation.
it for you, Scott?
I'm just gonna look right now to see if there's some other, I have, well, just one continuous outside.
What you got, Dave? 11 o'clock interview. Oh. Sorry.
Would it be an inconvenience
I'll
to
go.
the police and fire if we moved this to 10 or 11 o'clock on the second Thursday?
10 would be fantastic.
10 would be
I
great.
know
yeah.
you're under extreme pressure.
I would prefer 9, but, I'm
Yeah.
1, if everybody wants to do 10, I'm fine with that.
We're good wherever you wanna
Don't
go.
do it for me.
We'll go wherever you guys wanna go.
Whatever's-
Okay, we're set on the second Thursday. Let's split the difference, because I like 11, you like 9, let's do 10. Okay, if it's no inconvenience to police and
Okay,
fire.
I'm fine.
That's fine.
Okay, second Thursday, 10 o'clock. And you'll advise the city clerk's office of that change? Somebody
Yes.
advise.
We'll do it.
Okay.
Good, 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 good. Moving along.
Okay,
So
move.
maybe this report is just so
Well,
out of sorts that we
it's
shouldn't even
it's
bother?
going to be cut off. Adrian, you know, bless her heart, she worked hard on it yesterday, and so everything's going to be a little day, a couple hours, you know, here or there. So as you can see, for the month of August and September are up there. The homicide, there was no change, no rate. You'll see the biggest change that we see is the total violent crimes. And the reason why you see the big change is because of aggravated assaults, and that's
What
gonna.
is going on with aggravated assault?
Well, what happened was we had 2 different shootings over at Bay Street, in the IKEA area and then one inside the Bay Street area where they had the shootings. Well, we had 11 juveniles. So they count each one of those as a victim that was in the area that was when the shots were fired. So that's how it's reported. So you have 11 victims, so you're gonna see an increase from the 14, 11 of those are from one incident.
Okay, so, all right.
So that's where you'll see that increase. So it's a number game that we play.
Statistics really spells us out.
Well, and that's the other thing, and so, yeah, I just wanted, that's why you're gonna see a 600% increase.
Oh, wow.
So, if you go down the board, the simple assaults was down 31%. But,
Remind me of what a simple assault is.
so you have like, if someone gets into a fight, it's more, you know, but aggravated would be injury.
If I punch
Or,
somebody out, that'd be a simple assault.
right, weapons used would be an aggravated.
So watch it, Joe.
So, you're going to, and then so over the 3-year current average month, you'll see there is a little bit of a change. But year to date, it's not much difference in the, you'll see an increase there of 19%. Our property crimes has been our big thing. It's the auto burglaries that we're seeing an increase in. But we are actually down 29%, but that's because, like I said, the day a couple of shortage. We did have an additional, I believe Adrian told me, she said when she left yesterday at 3, there was an additional 7 that could have been added to this. And once again, where numbers are kind of a number game is that we had 4 victims in 1 report. We had 4 cars broken into 1 location. We used 1 report. That's an FBI stat. That's how they want it done.
So it's the opposite, one report and there were 4 incidents.
4 victims, yes.
So 4, okay.
And that'll be something that, I know Chief Tejada, we've already discussed that we're going to be looking at.
We're gonna change.
Because that, to me, and I know the command has already looked at it as well, is that should be, each victim should be identified as a victim.
Right.
Not 1 report covers 10 victims. So that's something that, you know, Chief Tejada even said, FBI, okay, you want it one way, we want it our way. So,
And conversely, with the aggravated assault, 14 victims, we don't even know who the intended victim of that
Yes.
was. So that just blows that stat to 600%. That
Yeah.
is
That's
just
crazy.
yeah.
crazy. It makes everybody look bad.
So what you're gonna see from us is a revised monthly report that's more reflective of what is actually happening, because I really don't care what the FBI needs. We still have to send this to them, but for our purposes, for conversation and understanding of what really is happening,
Yeah.
we're gonna be a little bit more transparent and not do the
This whole
FBI.
column of percent change is ludicrous when you're talking about numbers this small. The numbers speak for themselves, they're just small
Yeah.
numbers.
Right.
Do we have to have the percent change in there?
I like to have the percent change, but let's look at the revised reporting out format and then talk about that and what you'd like to see and not see when we do that. Yeah. It is nice to know what the percentages are when you're comparing last year to this year. For me, it just makes sense.
Plus, we can see.
We can white it out for you
We-
if you like.
What I like about it is we can say, oh, this is seasonal, you know, to look at it monthly, you know, it might be that.
You haven't convinced me, guys, it's a total misrepresentation
Well, year-to-date,
of
sort
what
of
happened.
has something and, you know, last
All
year
right,
total.
I'll go along with you, I'm easy.
So, going down, the commercial burglary, we were down from 5 to 1. Residential, we were up from 1 to 4. The grand theft, it's pretty much about the same. We were only up by 2. Petty thefts are about the same. Auto thefts, we were down. So you'll see no arsons. And then, like I said, the total property crime right now, we're down 13%. Last month to this month.
Jason, on the
Yes.
property crimes with the new law that went into
Prop
existence,
47, my
there
favorite
is really no consequence to these property crimes except a little tap on the wrist.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot more probation violations, which
Oh,
mean
man.
nothing. We have people that are on 3 or 4 different court probations. We have people that are on parole and probation. I don't understand probation.
They just
I mean,
keep
to me,
coming,
it doesn't
over
make-
and over
yeah,
and over
they're
again.
Repeat offenders.
Because there's no consequence, none.
And they know that.
Yeah.
But then there's the whole issue of each business, for example, that is protecting themselves with security guards. We might start to see a change in that they are going to, their security guards are gonna start to become more aggressive in stopping stuff going out the door. This is a question, or how they confront. I mean, there could be consequences that we should maybe anticipate.
Maybe. We had a very serious incident last week with Home Depot. 2 people, I think, is it in here? 2 people came in. It is in here.
Yes.
2 suspects came in, stole a drill.
The very bottom of your second page.
And when you watch the video of this, it's frightening when you think of what could have transpired, because the suspects came in, stole the drill, were walking out, confronted by security, and the guy with the drill, the security guy, latched onto him to stop him. The fight was on. Second security guy, these are big guys, wrestling on the ground with the
So
suspect.
2 guys were stealing 1 drill.
Yeah, so the second guy is standing outside the store watching 2 security guards wrestling with this guy, and then all of a sudden you see them back off and the guy comes out with a gun. It could have, and he's waving it. This could have been a very horrific, violent scene. The security guards back up, the guy goes out, and then he returns into the store, picks up the pieces that he dropped, but it looks like he's looking for the security guard. He's still got the gun out.
Wow.
So the incidents of violence, that kind of violence, are here in our community, and it's of some concern that that's happening, and it's happening a lot over at Home Depot. As we know, we've had a previous incident that had some very tragic consequences. But you're right, I think we're gonna see more of that. Prop 47 has had the unintended consequences of putting more criminals on the street. And
This is particularly disturbing to me, partly because in our older cities, where I come from in the east, it gets to be organized pretty quickly, and it gets to be a routine, and then there's just the dimensions of what it could do.
Oh, they're organized, yeah.
Oh, they're very organized.
With our auto burglaries, there's a very sophisticated
Large
network
yeah.
that comes in and does the auto burglaries all over the Bay Area.
Up and down the state.
Yeah, and they're centered right next to us in Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah, this just seems hard for you. It
It's
seems
very
hard.
challenging. It's very challenging because of, the resources that we have. We're limited in what we can do. When I look at things like this, we want to be proactive, we want to get ahead of it. And how do I do that? I put people out there so that there's a presence out there. And you'll see on the overtime report, we put 2 details out this last weekend, a 4-person team the first weekend and a 2-person the second. We only could put 2 people out because we didn't have enough people to put out. So it's certainly a concern for me with, we have 4 vacancies. We have more people, just like he said, retirements coming up in the next 2 to 5 years that are going to create this strain on resources. But anyway, we are doing a good job. The cops that we have here are trained, equipped to respond to these incidents. The piece that we need to remember in all of this is that we are seeing more weapons on the street. These suspects are very brazen. The fact that this guy came back into the store and seemed to be looking for a security guard to fire his gun at, it's chilling when you watch it. These 2 guys they were not nervous. They were very confident in their actions.
Well, can we get Home Depot to upgrade their video cameras and really, just increase their ability for us to go forward?
No, they've got great video.
Yeah,
we
it's
have
good.
great video. It's
Yeah,
out there.
It's a good video.
It's a good video.
And we're working on it right now.
now.
We'll make the video public to help to get more information on who these people are once Sergeant Bassetti decides that time is there. But during the initial investigation, you know, we want to make sure you don't tell the suspect, hey, we're coming for you. We want to do our homework first, and then if we don't identify
Understandably.
them, we put out the video requesting information from the public. Home Depot has been good in working with us, and the video is very
Yes.
clear. You can see, if you knew these people, you'd be able to identify them.
There's a growing attitude of disrespect toward police, and violent disrespect.
Yeah.
And a lot feeds into that, and I don't think it's gonna be turning around in the near future, so
Mhm.
we gotta really sharpen up,
Yes.
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think to be fair, wouldn't you say that growing sophistication because of Prop 47, so people that are in the business to steal, or there's more of them, and then the general public is upset about all kinds of, you know, police stopping people, and it could be interpreted as racially motivated, the stopping. So there's so many issues. It's not
Yeah.
one issue, it's
No.
multiple issues. And it's not a simple problem, it's a complex problem.
Yes.
It is. It's
And
very.
we're a microcosm of society, so we dealing with all of it. And, you know, we appreciate it, bringing it up, and, I mean, no reason to feel sorry for us, but we are trying to stay on top of it. And it's an uphill battle, but, we can assure you that, we'll keep the community safe.
And it just
Right.
seems like that crime, there's a little bit of criminals find soft spots, and it's always changing. Isn't that kind of true, that they're just looking for a soft spot and they'll find a new method to rob and steal, when you'll somehow get in touch with a way to stop one kind of crime, and then they're gonna look for another
And it
soft spot.
pops up somewhere else.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a matter of having the right resources, thinking outside the box, being, you know, working in partnership with our private partners, with Bay Street, with Home Depot, and collaboration with other agencies. We have some operations coming up with other agencies. Dante has a new Autoberg prevention program that's being rolled out, where the officers go around, because a lot of crime is crime of opportunity. People walking by cars and see phones and purses and laptops and smash the window, grab, gone. So the program that he has come up with is sort of giving people a notice on their car: thank you for locking your car and not leaving valuables in place, or please don't leave valuables in plain sight in your car. So they get an A on one hand if the car is locked and does not have any valuables in sight, or an F if there are valuables in the car. There's a little note that's upside down on the windshield that says, don't do that.
So hold the phone here. If a bad guy is walking
goes to
by
all
and
the
they
Fs.
see the F
Yeah.
sign and
They
say,
won't know the
there's the
difference.
valuables in here.
It's one card, it's the same card for both. It's just the writing is.
Oh.
And you were happy about this a couple of meetings ago. So yeah, it's down on,
It's face down.
face down on it, and then it gives you tips and.
That's
stuff
good,
like-
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
And
then
bad
when-
guys
Lost my
don't
head
stop
down.
to read things. Bad guys don't stop to take and read. Bad guys
They
walk along
smash and
really
grab.
fast, smash, grab, gone. They're not-
It's not a meter reader, you put chalk on the car.
Yes,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Overtime, where are we with overtime?
So overtime, the good news,
You
the
have
good,
this.
yeah, actually, yes, ma'am. The good news is we've used a little less than $15,000 comparatively to last year. This September, we have $45,792.28, and then last year in September we used $60,642. So we're doing better this year than we were last year.
I'm really glad to see these figures on training. That's such a critical part, because society is changing, and we gotta be training to change with it. So, although I'm very unusually, you know, I don't like to see money being spent. That's a really good use of money being spent.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for that, because having that support is
It's
really
critical.
important.
Training
And
is critical.
I agree.
In my first, I've only been here for 2.5 weeks, but one of the areas of improvement is training, and we really have to get up to speed on our training, and I have requested that we have actually a larger budget, because in order to meet our mandates, we're gonna have to do that. My goal is that we meet it's too late in 2015 to meet our mandates. In 2016, we are gonna meet all of our required mandates in training, which, you know, includes perishable skills, which is driving and shooting and defensive tactics, all of those use of force areas that are critically important. So you're gonna see probably more overtime in that category, because from my assessment, we're actually not doing what we need to be doing to do what we have to do. So it's really important. Thanks for your support.
Well, it's critical. Okay, where are we going?
We could stay right with that training. If we want to go over the numbers, I can go over the numbers. But staying right with that training, we did send people to the simunitions. That's where we're talking about making split-second decisions and simulating it, and it sharpens the officers. We've been sending them monthly to that, so that's great. And then the
You know,
EVOC is the.
how long is that presentation? Is there a short presentation that gives the guts of it? I'm thinking of having a presentation to the city council, perhaps at a study session or something like that. It depends, how long can you condense it down that you could really get the meat of it? I'm looking at 15 minutes.
Okay.
Can you do that?
We can hit some. We can get something together.
Yeah, no, you know, I'm a little excessive here. If you can't do it in 15 minutes, then we shouldn't say we can. But.
No, we can't do it in 15 minutes.
How long can we do it?
Do you want the
A
you want
minimum
the
of
value
30.
of it? Yeah. Do you want the value of it, and then we can hit the keys areas of it?
I
or-
want, exactly, the substance and the value, hit the high points, because we don't want the council out there with their guns. But
Right.
they want to understand what goes into these.
So I have a plan around this, and that is, there is a company that has what's called a force options trailer. It's like a big rig, and they will come in, and they have the rig inside has screens, and on the screens they play out. It's a 360.
Oh, you have to respond.
You actually will give you an inert gun and a baton and OC and
Oh,
Nora.
that's like the fire department.
You'll
did.
stand there, yes.
You
and
went
you'll-
into
guys
the
have
fire,
guns now?
yeah.
Yes.
Did you run into the fire?
You had to run into the fire, yes.
I've done the fire. yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's part of my plan on education.
When are you
around
gonna bring
use of
that in?
force. As soon as I catch my breath. I've only been here 2.5 weeks. But, so that's something we're working on. So I think then for that study session with city council, you're looking at least an hour so that we can give you an overview of use of force, why force options training is so important, and then have you actually
Go through the
try it.
trailer. That's perfect. What do you say, Scott?
That's perfect if it doesn't cost too much.
It's within our budget.
Okay?
Okay. Moving along, moving along. Come on, guys.
So the court, again, a little over $2,000. We had some arrests that we had to go to. Again, the more arrests we make, the more court we have. Meetings, we had a swearing in of Chief Tejada. And then special events. So for our special events, with the physical agility test to hire new officers. And we also had the Bay Street detail, where we had 4 officers one time, and then 2 officers another time on overtime, because of the shooting and the 2 shootings and the robbery. Training, we already went over that. We have a little bit of money was spent on our property purge, getting rid of the evidence we don't need. And the minimum staffing is a big issue with us. That's a huge issue, with over $16,000 spent on that. And we're in the process of trying to hire people, get more,
Well,
so
as
far.
we hire the other 4 officers, this number will go down, so it's kind of, no?
Possibly. When we talk about minimum staffing, we're talking about having the minimum number of officers on the street in order to carry out our operation. So right now, I feel like minimum staffing, which is our full staffing, is barely adequate.
And what is that, can you say
And
as a
so-
number? What-
So we need a minimum of 1 sergeant and
3 officers
3 officers on every shift, or?
on every shift.
On every shift. So this is another long conversation. When you look at staffing and the fact that they have 1 sergeant, 3 officers on every shift as minimum staffing tells me that we haven't looked at it in relation to calls for service, because calls for service cannot be the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So 1 and 3 is not operationally practical. So we have to look at our staffing structure and how we're spreading the resources in context of calls for service. So that's one thing. We'll always have court dates. We'll always have people who have earned their vacation. There are always people who, 1 or 2, who are gonna be out on injury, and then we have the sick time. And so with that and the fluid nature of staffing, we have another, an officer who's leaving next month. Then we have a retirement coming up in 8 months. We have another one in 14 months. For the next 5 years, we sat down and looked at it. We have these retirements coming up. So when we make our hires, we did all of our interviews. They did 61 interviews this week, Monday, Tuesday, and all of last week. We have, out of 61 interviews, we were only able to get 5 viable candidates. We're doing interviews today. I'm doing chief's interviews with those candidates today to decide if we pass them on to background investigation. The background investigation will take another month on each candidate. If they pass that, they will go into the academy in December. The academy is going to be 5 months. When they come back out of the academy in May, then they have to go through our in-house training program, which is 3 months. So we are looking at next August, if my math is right, before they are solo officers on the street. So this will probably not change.
Could you, and should you consider, like what you were talking about, time of day, maybe going below minimum staffing sometimes a day? Maybe, you know, or how do you?
In this city, I would not go below 1 and 3. In fact, what I would look at is increasing that on the busier shifts to maybe 1 and 5. But that's a whole nother project that's not going to be decided before the end of this year. There are so many things on my list of things that we've identified that need to be addressed. That's down the road. And it requires a lot of meet and confer with the officers on what their needs are as well, what they feel is appropriate. They're the boots on the ground. They're the people who know what's needed. So don't get too hung up on this number moving down. It's not going to move down, is my prediction.
I'm not so hung up on that. What I am hung up on is, and this has been an ongoing problem for me, designating overtime, because we have a 2-year budget coming up in May, June, and overtime has a certain connotation to it, to the general public.
Yeah.
You know, what are all these people coming in on overtime? A lot of these things could be somewhere in the general police budget, rather than accounted for in the general police budget, rather than in overtime.
Yeah.
And my hope has always been that we analyze carefully what those elements are, take them out of the overtime, address them in the general police budget, and then you'll see that the overtime budget will reflect a clear overtime, not something that is an ongoing expense. But that's not a priority here. We've got till May, June. But
Yeah.
it's something that I've been looking for a long time.
Yeah, and
Just
so.
because of the perception of the general public supports overtime.
Yeah. So to just beat the dead horse some more, I have a new method of capturing overtime that I'm gonna bring to the table, and we had a little conversation about it yesterday. It's more comprehensive, has more categories to look at. How are we spending our time? Are we capturing everything? And there are things that I think that are not in here that can be pulled out, so we can look at it and do exactly what you're saying and see for the next budget, is there a more appropriate category that these things can go into, so we're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're.
It's a matter of perception.
Yeah.
It's just changing the numbers from one place to another, but perception, especially in a little town, is very important.
It's always important.
Yeah.
You know, we're a government agency, and we have to
Right.
be accountable, and we ought to know where our dollars are going.
So
and-
I just
and
mentioned
for
it's
what.
not a priority, you've got more, but.
Good. No, we're working on it.
Okay. Okay.
Any other issues about police department overtime?
No.
Let's move on to staff comments.
I just have one announcement to make, if I may. Building security here is something that we've looked at, and I've looked at since I've come here. And so at your next meeting, what you're going to see is a sign-in procedure, just like they have at City Hall. So for the public coming in, there will be a sign-in at the front counter, and you just sign in, and we'll give you a visitor badge. So we know that you're here as a visitor, and you're not somebody walking around aimlessly. We have a lot of areas in the department that are unsecure that people could walk to. But this way we know who's coming in, and we give them a visitor security badge, and then they sign out, we know they're gone, that we don't have to wonder, are they still in the building? Just an added measure of security for this building.
Very good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, I have a few, just one comment. On this AB 902 that the governor just signed, this is on the bicycle traffic school for bicycle offenses, you know, you guys running through the red light, the stop sign.
Rebels.
And there's, now the governor signed this bill that there's an alternative. You don't have to pay a fine to go to school. Are we prepared, we set up for that change?
Nope.
We don't have to answer the question now, but I just want, we have a lot of ardent bicyclists, and
Yeah.
I'm sure they would much rather go to school than pay the fine.
Yes, good points. We'll put that on our radar screen.
May I have a go back north real quick? Jill Dutchover, some of you may know, she's one of our prep folks. Personal emergency preparedness, works for Hilda, who you met last night.
Oh, yes, yes.
So Hilda did the training last night, disaster council training over at Station 35 BOC. Jill did give me an email that last Thursday, she conducted personal emergency preparedness training in Emeryville at the Pain and Rehabilitation Consults Medical Group offices for 59 employees, which is half of their staff.
Wow.
She's coming back and doing the other half in the near future. There's an open house PEP here today, police department. Do we know the time on that?
6 to 9.
6 to 9?
Yeah.
Which is personal emergency preparedness for the public. There's a CERT, which is the course that Hilda was
Right.
promoting last night, which is your community emergency response training academy here in Emeryville, November 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's 3 days consecutive. I believe it's a Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. We don't know how, but it's somehow got on the billboard on 80, so they can take 50 students. We still don't know how it got up there.
50 students, oh
So
my
anyway,
God.
this is the first time since she's come in that we have 50
Good for you
people,
guys.
plus a waiting list now for that.
But are they Emeryville residents?
Yeah. Well, there's, most of them are Emeryville residents. I have a feeling some people are probably
Or workers.
driving
Or,
through.
okay, but, you know, but in other words, is it costing us to train?
No, it doesn't. It's part of the contract. We do that training for our jurisdiction.
That's good.
So
That's
this is the
good.
first one that they've done where one, not only is it maxed out, but we have a waiting list because we've actually had to cancel some. They just canceled one in Newark recently because there wasn't enough people. So however it got on the billboard, we don't care. We still don't know.
What's the date on that?
That one's November 6th, 7th, and 8th. It'll be Friday, Saturday,
That's the third, yeah, wow,
and
that's,
Sunday.
Well, it's good for people.
Yeah, we used to do it over like 8 weeks, 4 hours on Thursday nights. Now they're doing it one weekend, get it over with Friday night, all day Saturday and Sunday. Which is good. This community here in this town is very progressive and is very in tune to everything, like the EOC training we were talking about yesterday, and stocking up, preparing for an emergency. This is probably our most active community in that, with all our jurisdictions.
We gotta be, we're on Bay Mud. Okay,
Okay, I don't have anything to say. Thank you all, we're adjourned.
thank you
you.
very much, very eloquent, very good.